All right, let's jump right in. When you hear the word Persia, what do you think of? Ancient empires, epic poetry, maybe those magnificent carpets. For thousands of years, that name was one of the most powerful brands in all of history. But then, in 1935, a single diplomatic memo went out asking the entire world to just stop using it. So today, we're going to uncover the incredible story of why.
And that right there, that's our central mystery. Because, you see, this wasn't just some simple name change. Nope. This was a country trying to rewrite its own story. It's a tale of empires, of identity, and a quiet battle over how a nation sees itself and, crucially, how it wants the rest of the world to see it. So, what really happened?
To get to the bottom of this, we've got to go way back to the beginning. Our first clue is the name Persia itself. Where did that name even come from in the first place?
Well, what's so interesting is that Persia actually started out kind of small. It was really just the Greek name for one single region called Pars. And the people from there, the Persians, well, they were seen as, a bit provincial. They were totally overshadowed by their more powerful neighbors up north, the Medes. But that whole power dynamic, it was about to be flipped completely on its head. And that massive shift came in the form of one man, Cyrus, or Kurosh in Old Persian. After he unified all the different peoples, he didn't just build another empire with brute force. He introduced this idea that was totally radical for the time, that you could build a kingdom on, get this, respect for the cultures and the gods of the people you conquered.
And wow, did that idea work? In less than a single lifetime, this empire just exploded across the map. It became what a lot of historians now call the world's very first superpower. It swallowed up ancient kingdoms like Babylon and Egypt, stretching all the way from India to the shores of Greece. And think about this. They weren't just conquerors, they were brilliant administrators. They built these unbelievable road networks and a postal service that was basically the envy of the entire ancient world. So here's the key takeaway. The name Persia became the global brand for this incredible legacy of power, tolerance, and really sophisticated governance. Of course, no empire lasts forever, right? But when the Achaemenid Empire finally fell, it faced its biggest test. Could the idea of Persia actually survive, even without the empire that created it? So in 334 BCE, Alexander the Great's army just storms through, and the empire is shattered. But here's the crazy twist. The conqueror was, in a way, conquered by the culture. Alexander was so blown away by Persian customs that he started adopting them himself. He married Persian nobles, and he even declared himself the successor to the old Persian kings, all of which absolutely horrified his Greek generals.
And this became a pattern, you see. Through all these waves of new rulers and new religions, the idea of Persia was like a river that would just go underground for a while, only to pop back up even stronger. New dynasties like the Sassanids would rise up and proudly wrap themselves in the legacy of those ancient kings. The name just refused to die.
But here's probably the single most important clue in our whole mystery. While the rest of the world knew this place as Persia, the people who actually lived there, for centuries, they had been using a totally different name for it. And that name was about to become critically important.
And that major turning point comes in the 16th century with the Safavid dynasty. They united the land, and they made Shia Islam the official state religion. Now, this was a monumental decision. It created this powerful, very distinct identity that completely set the region apart from all the Sunni empires surrounding it.
So this is where you get this really fascinating split identity. To the rest of the world, it was still Persia, that famous brand name handed down from the ancient Greeks. But internally, the name they used for themselves was Iran, which comes from an ancient term meaning land of the Aryans, or the nobles. Persia was the external brand, Iran was the internal soul. Now, for centuries, these two identities, these two names, they basically coexisted. But in the turbulent years of the early 20th century, a new leader came along who decided that a nation with two names basically had a divided soul, and it was time to pick one.
And that leader was Reza Shah Pahlavi. He came to power with this huge vision. He was going to forge a strong, independent, modern nation. And a really critical part of that vision was taking control of the country's story, its brand on the world stage.
So, in 1935, that fateful letter goes out to all the world's embassies. And his strategy, it was pretty straightforward. First, he wanted to shed the name Persia, because he felt it was tied to this Western kind of Orientalist fantasy of a land of poetry and decay, not of power. Second, he wanted to embrace authenticity by insisting the world use the name the people actually used for themselves. And third, he wanted to project a brand new image, the strong, modern nation-state of Iran.
But this was not some easy, universally popular decision. Not at all. Inside the country, many people were heartbroken. To them, dropping the name Persia, it felt like taking a knife to their own history. Like severing their connection to Cyrus the Great, to thousands of years of art and science. It started this massive debate over who they really were.
In the end, the decision stood. The world's maps were literally redrawn, and Persia officially became Iran. But the story, it was far from over, because in one of history's great ironies, the legacy of these two names was about to take one last, really unexpected twist.
And that twist came in 1979, with the revolution that established the Islamic Republic of Iran. This event would, once again, completely reshape the country's relationship with the rest of the world, and in doing so, it would fundamentally change the meaning of the very name that Reza Shah had so deliberately chosen.
And this is where we see the final, fascinating reversal. Today, for a lot of people in the West, the name Iran is tied to headlines, geopolitics, sanctions, conflict. Meanwhile, the old name, Persia, has been completely reborn. It now evokes this romantic, cultural past, of fine art, ancient history, and mythic grandeur. It has, ironically, become everything Reza Shah wanted to escape.
Which leaves us with a pretty deep question to think about. Is a country's name ever really just a name? Or is it maybe a kind of silent war between what we were, what we are, and what the rest of the world wants us to be?